everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest, and today I just got back from seeing Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. This is a very highly anticipated movie that, if you've been paying attention online for the last week or so, it's been getting some divisive reviews. Some have been very negative and some have been very, very positive. Very little middle ground there. And obviously there's gonna be a full spoiler review, so go watch the movie first. Don't be spoiled, because believe me when I say I had seen leaks and stuff, and context and actually seeing the way things are played out are a lot better than just trying to read the leaks or just trying to read a summary of what happens, because then you might see all the negatives. You might be like, oh well, I don't need to, watching the movie is better than just reading it. I think that's all I'm trying to say. Anyways, so yeah, I want to start off simply by saying, look, I really like this movie. However, I definitely see all of the reasons why some people will not like this movie. Okay, and I kind of put this in a tweet earlier, but this movie makes very bold decisions immediately and later on in the movie that you're either going to accept because you were kind of expecting them to happen, or you're going to reject those decisions outright, and that will that could possibly ruin the movie for you if you reject those decisions that they made. And it's all, I'm just gonna jump into it. Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch, she is the villain of this movie. There's no two ways about it. There's not like a vagueness about it. She has gone full bad guy. And when I say the villain of this movie, I mean she is literally gruesomely, horrifically murdering people. And she is chasing down America Chavez so that she can absorb her powers. And we'll get more into those murders in a little bit, but she's absolutely the villain of this story, and it happens right away. It's a pretty early on reveal, Doctor Strange has some dreams about this girl, and then he, later on that day, he actually meets that girl. It's like, oh, it's not a dream. Those were actually visions of different places in the multiverse. And basically the idea is that anytime anyone dreams, those are actually places in the multiverse. Okay, and they mean literally always. So I guess that's just a rule of the MCU to remember from this point forward. Anytime we see a character dreaming, that's actually happening somewhere. So that's just an interesting thing that I'm sure will get explored later. But yeah, so basically this girl is being chased by a bunch of demons, and she has already had one Doctor Strange try to help her, and then when they were like cornered, the Doctor Strange decided, well, sorry, I can't help you, so I'm gonna try to take your magic myself, basically killing you, because it's for the greater good. And interestingly enough, this Doctor Strange repeats a phrase that Steven had said in No Way Home about the villains, about the Spider-Man villains, where he's like, in the grand scheme of the multiverse, your sacrifice means much more than whatever, So he was gonna like sacrifice her to absorb her power, and it was pretty dark turn. Anyways, he gets killed, this first Doctor Strange, and they kind of bury his body, which will be used later in the movie, his dead body. And so Steven goes to visit Wanda, because he's like, okay, well, there's demons, there's witchcraft, because of the runes that are on these monsters that we just fought. So I gotta go talk to Wanda, because she's a witch. She's dealt with like witchcraft stuff. The whole WandaVision thing happened. And at first they have like a kind of a pleasant conversation, and she's like, oh, well, okay, bring America Chavez here, I'll help her out. And then pretty quickly he's like, wait a minute, I didn't tell you her name. So it's like, oh, so Wanda's behind this, and they figure that out immediately. They don't draw it out too long. And basically she's like, okay, yeah, I'm doing this. I'm sending the monsters. You're going to give me one America Chavez, or I'm going to wreck all of you. So she has gone full dark side, 100% evil. And here's one thing that, first, a lot of this depends on how you saw the ending of WandaVision, because WandaVision TV show, an exploration of Wanda's grief and her loss, and it was really well done. And then the ending and this is where I can see a lot of people like, you know, this is like, you're either going to accept this or you're not. Because at the end of WandaVision, there is a scene where she's saying goodbye to her family and saying goodbye to Vision, and she seems to be like in this, you know, sense of acceptance, you know, like she's finally reached the stage of acceptance, and it's like she's letting go. But then we get the after credits of WandaVision where she's reading from the Darkhold, and we see we see her floating in her astral projection, and her eyes are glowing red, and she's hearing the voice of her children, you know. So it seemed to be a sudden tonal shift, and obviously it's been a year since then, and my reaction to that final scene has always been, okay, so they are turning her evil. She's gonna be evil, like, we know this. So when this movie starts and that's like a very sudden, very quickly done reveal, it's like, yeah, I knew that. It doesn't seem like everyone knew that. I'm seeing a lot of reactions out there, a lot of people who are very big fans of Wanda and Scarlet Witch, you know, and rightfully so. She obviously she's been in like 9 of these movies now or something like that. So it's like she's a very well-known, beloved character, and so to have like this turn where it's like she's evil now, this hero, this person who, like, you know, you think back to Ultron and then Civil War and Infinity War and all these movies, it's like, oh, she's evil, and not just a little evil, she's brutally evil, you know. But they do give a little bit of a caveat. They do give a tiny, and they say it like maybe once or twice. The Darkhold takes a toll on who, and not just you know, not just like it takes like a physical toll on the world, but it costs whoever reads it, you know. They even later on say Wanda has the Darkhold and the Darkhold has Wanda, you know. So the book that she's reading, it is a corrupting book, you know. In many ways you can think of it as, you know, like many evil objects in fantasy stories. It's like the One Ring, right? So she's been isolated, and she's been reading this book for who knows how many months now. So the fact that she's gone completely 100% evil, I fully buy. I 100% buy this, that's happened. But like I said, if you can't buy that, if you like reject that premise, then this movie's largely not going to work for you. So to the people who are upset that this is what the movie is, I understand why you're upset. It makes sense. I'm personally able to accept it because I've been anticipating it for so long. I've kind of known, like, she's clearly going to be evil, you know, like I knew that's immediately where the direction was going. So when she's evil, I'm like, yep, there it is. Like I don't have a problem with it because I've kind of understood it, you know, that was the mission that they were going with. But yeah, I just have to put it out there that, like, if this upsets you, I do get it. Because, like, it in many ways it reminds me of kind of like the Rise of Skywalker, where it's like Palpatine's alive, the dead speak. You just have to buy this. If you don't buy it immediately as soon as the movie starts, then the movie's not going to work, you know. And it is kind of like that bold statement. Having said that, Wanda's a really great and actually scary villain. Like, honestly, there's parts where they're running down hallways trying to get away from her, and I'm actually like, Jesus, this is, you know, Sam Raimi's going full horror movie with this, and he's just going for it. And she's actually really terrifying. So let's talk about the other thing, the other big element of this. So, you know, they're going from multiverse to multiverse, and Wanda's chasing them down, and they introduce this idea that you know, using the Darkhold, you can project your consciousness into another version of yourself in the multiverse, and that's what Wanda does. She ends up taking over the body of a different Wanda, a Wanda who actually does have her kids. And that way she can get America Chavez, absorb her powers, and then go to a universe where her kids exist, and she can just be their mom. And now she has multiverse powers now, and that's really all her goal is. She wants to have her kids back. And, you know, again, my idea is like the Darkhold's kind of doing this corruption, you know, basically taking what she wants, which is her kids, and then the Darkhold is corrupting that idea to an extreme where she's willing to do anything to get her kids, you know, literally anything. Which is like, anyways, I think that's how we get to this point. Anyways, so at some point, you know, a lot of different cool multiverse stuff happens, and then suddenly we are at the Illuminati. They're captured, they're taken to the Illuminati, and this is essentially where we get all of our cameos, just in this one scene, which I think works fine, right? Like, this does not need to be cameo the movie, you know, this can just condense all the cameos here, and essentially the Illuminati is really just used, I don't know, how would you say it, as a plot device, I guess. They're essentially just to get from one point to the next point, you know. So they're not really meant to be this, you know, these characters that they introduce here, these cameos, they're not really meant to be like these major parts of the story. They're just here for like some small plot tidbits so Stephen Strange can learn a couple things, and then they go right back to him trying to stop Wanda, right? Or, you know, trying to get away from Wanda. And by the way, the other thing is that this movie moves. It you know, again, kind of like The Rise of Skywalker, this movie is like, it's cut down to just 2 hours. You know, Sam Raimi's even come out and been like, oh yeah, this movie at some point was like 40 minutes longer. But this movie just moves and moves and moves, which, you know, that's another thing where it's like, if you are not okay with that kind of pacing, where it's like, it's just gonna keep going, and it's only 2 hours, so they're gonna keep moving from plot, you know, A, B, C, D, and they're just gonna keep going. There are a couple moments where they slow down and they kind of like have a moment, but this is definitely like, the plot is going, you know. Some people are not gonna be okay with that pacing. I personally was. In fact, it was kind of refreshing, honestly, to have a movie that was only 2 hours, because so many movies now are like close to 3 hours or even past that. So honestly, it was kind of refreshing. I was like, yeah, okay, it's only 2 hours. I can actually get out of here at a reasonable time. Anyways, but yeah, so these cameos that we get part of the Illuminati. We have Mordo as this version of the Sorcerer Supreme, because they're Stephen Strange, and we'll talk about this later, but he's dead. They have Professor X, right? Professor Xavier, of course, Patrick Stewart, right? They have Black Bolt, who apparently this is the same actor as the Inhumans TV show that like nobody watched. But I mean, hey, that's the fact that they're able to recycle that and be like, oh hey, remember we had that TV show for like 5 episodes. That was the thing. I'm kind of it's just kind of cool that they were actually able to use that. They have Maria Rambeau as this version of Captain Marvel. They have Captain Carter from... I doubt that this is exactly the same What If version of Captain Carter. You have to imagine, you know, there's an infinite versions of a Captain Carter somewhere. And then you have John Krasinski as Reed Richards, which was a really cool moment. Now, here's the thing about this Illuminati. And again, this is another like kind of bold decision, where some people like saw the Illuminati being mentioned or the leaks, and they got all hyped up and they're like, this is what the movie's about. This movie's not about the Illuminati. They are not the main villains of this movie. In fact, they are more of a temporary obstacle, more than anything, you know. And when I say temporary obstacle, I mean that these characters are dispatched very quickly and very brutally by Scarlet Witch. Like, she takes them all out. And some of the deaths are pretty graphic, actually, and I was very surprised. But like, that's gonna stay with me, because I was like, Jesus, that was they didn't need to go that hard, but they did. They definitely did. So yeah. Okay, so and the other thing, before we get to like their ultimate deaths that happen, it's revealed that the Stephen Strange in this universe, outside of their headquarters, they had a giant statue where it's like, oh, he died fighting Thanos, you know, big heroic thing, right? And of course, it turns out that that is actually a lie. You know, they just put that out there so that way people could believe in heroes or whatever. It turns out, and they don't get too specific with it, so I really want to like watch the scene again, but they you know, they show our Stephen Strange a vision of like what happened, and it turns out that their Stephen Strange had used the Darkhold, and through his experiments trying to find a way to stop Thanos, he ended up causing an incursion event, which is when two different universes collide into each other and ultimately one or both are destroyed. And then he came back, and they found they have this magic book, like the opposite of the Darkhold. It's like the good book. And it can give you any kind of weapon or any kind of device you might need to stop the bad guys. Basically, it's like the ultimate, like, get out of jail free card, basically, is what this book is. And they don't get too specific with it, but they do show Thanos's dead body, and they're on the planet Titan. And it basically, what happened from what they described is that, like, the entire group decided that they had to kill their Stephen Strange because he was corrupted by the Darkhold. And the interesting thing is that, like, their Stephen Strange didn't seem to, like, be fighting against that at all. Like, he was just like, okay, I'm ready. Like, he's already on the ground, and I don't know if he was fighting them or if it was from the fight with Thanos, but he wasn't, like, fighting them anymore. He was just like, okay, I'm ready, let's do this. And then Black Bolt comes out, and he says, I'm sorry. And of course, when he talks, it creates like this crazy hypersonic thing that will just disintegrate anything, right? And so and so basically what I'm trying to get at is that, like, this Illuminati group, they're definitely not the Avengers. They definitely seem to have, like, a darker kind of, like, they're willing to take out one of their own, if they just judge it to be the right thing to do in the moment. They're willing to kill one of their own members, which is crazy. This kind of almost reminds me of sort of like the Injustice series from DC. Like, this is, we have a Reed Richards, who, by the way, it's kind of crazy to get introduced to a multiversal Reed Richards when we haven't even been introduced to the main MCU version yet, because that movie's obviously not out yet. But we get a Reed Richards here who's like, they all seem kind of shady. We have a Captain Carter, and we've had a different Captain Carter, but now it's like this one, they're all complicit with this murder of one of their own, and they're just like, it was for the greater good, we killed him. I was like, what? I don't know. And so I think I was, that's what made it easier to go down with how, like, quickly they were only moments later completely murdered by the Scarlet Witch, because she shows up, and I think of all the deaths, it was Black Bolt, which was the craziest one. They stand in front of Scarlet Witch, and they're literally like, they're not taking her seriously at all. They're just like, look, Wanda, why don't you just chill out? Just, we have all of us here. Black Bolt over here, all he has to do is whisper, and then you're dead. Like, we're super unstoppable. But of course, she, I don't know why. Yeah, I guess that's my other thing. It's like, these people are supposed to be so smart. They literally say that, like, hey, Reed Richards, he's the smartest guy in the universe. But it's like, really? He didn't, like, the Scarlet Witch can rewrite reality, can change anything. You didn't see this coming. You didn't know that this was about to happen. Why would you try to fight her just up front like this? Anyways, so basically she's like, oh, he can just whisper, a whisper from his mouth can kill me? Like, what mouth? And then he doesn't have a mouth. And the Black Bolt tries to, like, speak, and it just, because he doesn't have a mouth for it to come out, it just explodes out of his brain. And you don't see anything because he's got the helmet on, but you can see, like, the helmet kind of sludge down, and it's like, Jesus, that, oh man. And then Captain Carter, like, she gets her own shield thrown and cuts her in half, basically. Maria Rambeau gets a statue crushed on her, so she gets crushed. Mr. Fantastic, he like, literally like a paper shredder. Like, he just gets, like, pulled into, like, a bunch of little stringy bits, and then he pops, So, like, Scarlet, this I think will go down as definitely the most brutal moment that Marvel has ever done. And I'm honestly just very surprised that they let Sam Raimi do this, because it's like, there's gonna be kids watching this, like, small kids, and they're, like, and I can't even blame parents for taking their kids to see this, because it's like, yeah, it's a Marvel movie. you know, this is like number 30, 32 or something, you know, so it's like we're well trained that anyone could watch these movies. So like, it's just I'm kind of shocked how far they let him go. There's not like a crazy amount of blood, but there's like just enough blood, and it's all framed like right in the right way where it's like, oh, you know what happened, you know it just happened, how brutal that was. Oh man. Oh, and Professor X like tries to go in her mind, and then she just manages to break his neck. And oh my god, just seeing Patrick Stewart like dead on the chair, it was like they didn't have to go this brutal, man. They really okay, they let him do it. That was insane that they did that. Anyways, but like I said, some people are going to be upset that the Illuminati, they're not a huge part of the movie. You know, they're there for maybe 20 minutes total, right? Some people are really gonna hate because they went in there just for the Illuminati. And again, if you're upset at this movie, I understand why, because these are like the kinds of decisions where it's like they're shocking and they're bold, and if you don't just go with them, then the movie's not gonna really work for you. So I understand the divisiveness that's happening. Anyways, so the Illuminati's dispatched real quick. They're gone. And basically what they end up doing is that Doctor Strange gets stranded in this other world with this different Strange who had collapsed his universe, and he ends up defeating him and using a Darkhold that he had to take over the dead body from that original Strange that the movie started off with. So now he's like a zombie body. And it's actually a really cool segment. He uses these souls to fly, and it's like these giant soul skeleton wings that he's got. It's pretty cool, actually. And basically it all comes down to America Chavez opens a portal back up to that Wanda who had kids, the same Wanda whose body she took over. And basically she gets convinced to stop, basically, once she sees that like the kids are afraid of her. You know, they're afraid of what she's become. You know, like, you're not our mom, you're some kind of witch crazy lady, you know, our mom is over there, you know, the other Wanda. And so she kind of just realizes how crazy far she's gone, and she decides, and this is another moment which I think this is the one for me where I'm like, okay, I don't know if this was the right choice. She decides that she doesn't want anyone to be tempted by the Darkhold, which, by the way, is like, the book was destroyed and now the Darkhold was carved onto this ancient temple, and this is where the Darkhold really came from. Anyways, she decides she has to destroy this temple, that way no one's ever tempted by the Darkhold again, and that seemingly is the death of the Scarlet Witch. Seemingly. I mean, they don't, you know, we see the temple collapse and no one like comments on it after that. That seems to just be the end of matters. So I don't really know. I think I saw somewhere that Elizabeth Olsen was still contracted to be in 2 more movies. So yeah, it's possible that she somehow comes back, but like, to be honest with you, after everything that she did, after the amount of people that she killed, and not just the Illuminati, but the other wizards at the Carmertage, she killed a lot of people there too, you know? So I have to ask, like, even if she did come back, like this version of Wanda, if this version of Wanda came back, I don't know. I don't know. She killed a lot of people in very horrible ways. I don't know if it could work. But it's entirely possible that they get a different multiverse version of Wanda. I mean, they did the same thing with Gamora. You know, like, Gamora died, and now we have just a different Gamora from 2014 walking around. So it's possible that that's the plan. I don't really know. It's that's like the one big, like, I don't really know about this kind of thing. Anyway, so yeah, so everything seems to be going back well, and Doctor Strange is kind of like going on about his life, and then suddenly he gets like a huge headache, and he has a third eye in his forehead now, which is the same thing that the evil in the corrupted world Doctor Strange had. And I suppose this is just from having the Darkhold and using the Darkhold for a little bit of time, but then I have to ask, why did Scarlet Witch never have a third eye, right? Like, I don't know. That is another thing where I'm like, what does that do? What does that mean exactly? Why didn't she have one? If the Darkhold gives you a third eye, where was her third eye? Don't really know. In any case, and then we get one little cameo. I mean, but there's two after credit scenes. The first one is another cameo character. I don't remember this character's name. I'll have to look it up, but some other sort of dimension hopping witch character shows up and says like, all right, Doctor Strange, I need your help. And it seems like they go to the dark dimension. I'm not really sure, but I'm sure we'll find out. And then the other after credit scene is just Bruce Campbell cameo, that's pretty funny actually. But yeah, overall, like I said, I enjoyed this movie. I enjoyed that, I liked the fast pace. I assumed going in that Wanda was going to be a villain, and she was a much more brutal villain than I thought she was going to be, but she was, I kind of knew that going in. The Illuminati, like, I didn't think that the Illuminati was going to be like main characters, I figured like there's already so much going on, the Illuminati can't be that big parts of the movie, and so when they weren't, it wasn't really a big deal to me. So like a lot of the things I think that are gonna upset other people, they didn't upset me. Like, not really. Like, I still have some questions, I'm still like, so Wanda's like dead, like that's how she died. I still have some questions and some things where I'm like, I don't know if that was the best way to go about that. But overall, I had a fun time, and it's definitely the movie that's gonna leave me like thinking about it, and that feels good, because honestly, after I watched Eternals and even Shang-Chi and Black Widow and just the last couple of Marvel ones, aside from Spider-Man, it feels like I wasn't left with too much to like sit and think about, and I don't just mean like cameos or something. I mean like things that happen in the movie that were genuinely like just visually like shocking, where I'm like, I'm thinking about it 2, 3, 4 days later, and this one definitely feels like one of those where like I feel like next week I'm still gonna be thinking about like, oh my god, remember what happened to Black Bolt? Jesus, like it's gonna be in my brain still. I'm still gonna be thinking about this movie. But yeah, so if you're a real big fan of Wanda Maximoff, I can definitely see how this movie's gonna upset you. I totally get that. I mean, she was great in this movie, and she was horrifying, and she was, I would say she's the scariest villain that we've had. Like, she was like, she was like the Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger of this movie. It was crazy. But I definitely get where it's like some people feel like this was very out of character for her. Even if you add in like the Darkhold corrupting her kind of stuff, some people feel like this was just way too far and too sudden. And I don't necessarily feel that same way, but I understand why you might think that. So yeah, overall, I get it. I get the divisiveness. I understand how this is gonna be that kind of movie. This is not gonna be like the overall praised 99% of people love it kind of movie. This is definitely gonna be like, okay, maybe 60%, 70% love it, but a good healthy amount of people are like, what the hell happened here? Yeah, it's an interesting one for sure. And I will say this, Sam Raimi directing it, I could definitely tell it was different. It was filmed different. It felt different. The pacing, the editing, everything just felt so different than a normal Marvel movie that like, it was refreshing. It was. It wasn't for everyone. It's gonna get some mixed results, but it's different, and it's nice that like after 30 something movies, it's like we can get something that feels a little different. It's a very different kind of movie. Anyways, so yeah, overall, I like it. I understand the divisiveness. I understand where it's all coming from. some people are going to be really angry with this movie. They're going to have wanted several other things, and that was not the goal of this movie, you know. For me personally, I feel like it delivered on everything I was expecting to happen, and I had fun, and I was genuinely surprised in several moments. So yeah, I enjoyed it. Anyways, so that is Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Let me know what you guys think about this. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know, were you angry? Were you happy with the movie? I genuinely don't know where this is going to end up falling on the general consensus, you know, because I'm still seeing plenty on kind of both sides, so I don't know if this is going to end up like being a beloved movie or like a reviled, hated movie. I guess we'll find out. Anyways, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.